Welcome to the Let's Talk Property with MFS podcast. MFS are a bridging loan and buy-to-let mortgage provider and not a financial advisors. The opinions expressed in this episode are personal to the host and guest and may not reflect the views of MFS. Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Property with MF podcast. Today we have Ajay from Halfstone Mortgages here to talk about dilapidated properties, derelict properties and stuff that generally needs renovation. So thank you very much for coming on today. I know we got you here late notice, so I do appreciate you making the effort to come down.
That's right.
Today we're going to talk also about derelict property, something that you evolved in two sectors, one as an investor and one advising clients.
Correct.
So yeah, just sort of what sort of stuff you're currently looking at the moment from an investor side and also from a client basis. What sort of stuff are your clients looking at the moment?
To be honest, it's all about numbers, right?
Yeah.
So as far as clients are concerned, generally 90% of the time when they're coming to me for mortgage advice, they're also trying to get investment advice. Now, obviously, we're not supposed to be doing that. So it's really difficult because
Fine line.
Yeah, it is, because they know me as an investor, but they also know me as an advisor. So when they come to me, a lot of the time it's, well, you invest. What would you do? It's just like, yeah, that's not in my remit. I can't really talk about what I would do or what I do.
It's an opinion, not advice.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's like, well, when do you take your advisor hat off and put your investor hat on and vice versa? So what I tend to do with regards to the investment side of things is I just publicize what I'm doing as an investor.
Okay.
So if people need to see what I'm doing as an investor, they'll
Makes
see
sense.
it and they'll take tips from that. And then when I'm doing the mortgage side of things, I'm just focusing 100% on the mortgages or the bridging. But yeah, ultimately it comes down to numbers. And I tend to tell, for myself, I tend to look at properties backwards. So I'm looking at GDVs.
Okay.
I'm looking, what are the perfect properties looking like? What's the value of those properties? And can I get the cheapest possible property in that area? And obviously the rent has to match up with rising mortgage rates.
So you like to keep and hold then, do you? Or do you sort of flip out?
No, I haven't flipped for a while. I did a lot of flips in 17, 18. But yeah, at the moment it's holding.
The flipping's not as easy as it, well, saying that if you find the right deal, but like you said, it's, a lot of people's strategy is still just to buy and hold.
It is, yeah. I mean, you talk about the old school mentality where everyone was looking for capital growth. And obviously capital growth is just speculation.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, we've got to focus on what the property market's doing, what's this doing. To be honest, if you're buying and you're holding, you don't care what the market's doing.
No.
As long as that rental income's coming in, as long as you're providing a service for your tenants, that's the most important thing. But that GDV figure will dictate what your refurb figure will be, which will dictate what your purchase price will be. So if you're working backwards, I think it works a hell of a lot better. And that's what I've done for forever.
Yeah, because you can sort of look at what's being sold in the area, everything else you sort of know, right, that's the top end, that's the lower end, and then try and fit yourself within there. Because I think I was reading the other day, it's like 600,000. When I was looking the other day, 600,000 properties at the moment, which are classed as derelict, which basically means no one's been in there for 6 months plus. So there's like 600,000 prime opportunities for people to sort of jump on.
There are a lot. And one of the biggest issues that investors are finding is trying to get hold of those empty homes. Councils supposedly have empty homes officers. Some councils don't have them.
You'd think every council, you'd have it across the whole entire spectrum, wouldn't you? Not just particular
absolutely.
Councils.
So the area that I'm specifically focusing on and building a portfolio at the moment, I've kind of moved area in about 2 years ago. And where I'm focusing at the moment, the empty homes officer is really difficult to speak with. And, we'd go past the property, and I've got a team up there now, and they focus on everything, they do everything for me. But when they are speaking to the empty homes officer, it's like pulling teeth.
It's a property that can be given to someone.
Yeah, I've just driven past this house. It's been empty for 3 years. Can I get in there? Can we find out who the owner is? Can we speak to them and see if we can get this back on the market? Because the housing shortage isn't a joke, it's serious.
Yeah,
and all of these empty homes, it just causes so many problems. And a lot of people just don't understand it. And then people are like, oh, well, you're just trying to make a profit. And it's like, well, no, it's about helping people.
You can do both.
Get into, absolutely.
You can help with the housing crisis and make money from it.
You can, but it's also helping people get into a property. You know how many people are lining up to get into a property. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. I was giving a talk at an event the other day, and I just had a show of hands to the estate agent how many people, even just on a rental property, you've got people outbidding people for a rental property. So they're offering £200-300 a month more than what is being advertised at just to win it.
Yet the surveyors will never, ever agree with it.
No.
And they'll always come back and say, oh, you're getting 800? Nah, it's worth 650.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, great. 30 people that will line up and pay me 800 for that property,
Yeah.
but you still think it's worth 650? Yes. The problem is surveyors won't move with the time, right? Right now we have a housing crisis.
Yeah.
All right, there is a shortage, a massive shortage. Tenants are desperate to get into properties. Tenants will pay. Rising rents exist because there's such a shortage. Supply and demand. It's very, very simple economics.
You know, we've been saying we've got to build all these brand new homes. We're still not hitting targets. I think now is the time to start, you know, helping, you know, investors like yourself utilize stuff that's already here. Stuff that just needs to be given a bit of love and brought back onto the market for someone else to live in and use and everything else. Because it's an eyesore, isn't it? Especially if you've got, you know, sometimes you see there's like 10 houses on the street and there's like this one house that everyone knows is the derelict empty house, which, you know, no one knows who lives there, no one knows who goes there. And it does take down the, you know, the street a little bit.
It does, yeah. It's interesting because they talk about, oh, we need to build more homes. Yeah. Trying to get permission to build more homes is virtually impossible.
Well, Michael Gove's got a big plan for that, isn't he?
Well, we'll see. But he has changed his tune as well. He was dead set against landlords. And, you know, he's taken a bit of a step back as well recently. I look at some of my properties where I've had tenants in there since like 2015 and they've never moved out.
Yeah.
And they're fine with the rent increases as we go on. I mean, one of the properties I rented for £500 in January 2016, and today they're paying 565. But it's like,
but it's the thing, it's not a big jump.
No, but it's 7 years on. It's only gone up by 65 quid because that's where the market says it should be for that particular area. Unfortunately, the value of the house has gone up considerably. So we're getting hit with the mortgage because obviously the interest rates are so high and so we're not meeting ICRs. But aside from that, like the tenant's happy, I'm happy. I've got no.
And that's what it's about. And it's a testament to you as a landlord that you've got someone in there for that extended period of time that doesn't care about any of the changes, having to pay a little bit more. And those
I mean, we put a new boiler in there a couple of years ago. I'm literally, as we speak, we're putting new carpets in. It's like, well, it's a home for someone, you know? And if I didn't have that home for that tenant, what would that tenant do?
And you know, it's actually a really nice way that you the way that you look at it, you know, as a business, but you also look at it as providing a house for a young family or someone to grow and lead the next part of their lives. But it sort of leads me on to the style of properties. So, you know, obviously a lot of derelict properties, 95% of them are generally sort of old, or you're seeing some stuff that's reasonably modern that's not, no.
A lot of the new stuff. One thing that obviously with all these retail stores closing down. I was reading an article I think it was this morning or yesterday evening. This morning, they're all closing all of their stores. So all these commercial units are becoming available.
Oh, there's going to be loads.
But the problem is that some of these commercial landlords are just hiking rents through the roof that no one can afford them. Case in point happened to my mother. She's been on Carnaby Street since the 70s, and she just had her rent doubled. From 60,000 a year to 120,000 a year.
No business can sustain that.
Yeah, it's like, well, how? Like that's just insane. And so she's had to move to a smaller.
The funniest thing is though, right? Surely there'll become a point where these people are, you know, they just price themselves out in the market, where you know you lose a good tenant like someone like your mother that's been there for 70 years. You get someone like a new starting business that says, "Oh yeah, go on, whatever it is, I'll take it." A year later, they can't afford to pay it, and then
and that is the turnaround, especially in that area in Soho. The turnaround's incredible. Like someone else will come in, they'll pay the rent for a year and a half, and they're like, "Well, we can't afford it anymore. Sorry," and we're gone. And it's like if they had been a bit more sensible with their rent increases, and that's important. Like that's important for us as landlords to understand that. It's not just about making a profit. It's about understanding the market and understanding who your tenant is. Understanding
your customer, basically,
right.
isn't it?
You've got to understand what's right for them as well as for yourself. And you can't be greedy.
No.
Right? You just can't.
I think it's And I think that will be the detriment of some landlords where they're seeing,
Yeah, you'll get it.
you know, they just try and take the mickey, really. Moving on back onto the derelict property side of things, is there a sort of limit that you guys, I know you talk about you work your way back, is there some stuff that you'd sort of think, you know, is there a level of works or an amount of, you know, percentage compared to the value of the property that you'd sort of avoid to say, we'll just call it round numbers, if it's 100 grand, you're going to have to spend 150 grand on it and you might be able to make some. Is there a line which you turn around and say, right, no?
There isn't really a line, no. Again, it will come down to what the GDV is.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I'm buying something for 100 and I've got to spend 150, if it's not worth at least 300, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
If it's going to be worth 250, i.e. it's worth what I'm spending, there's no point.
No.
Because I just get something that's already done and in perfect condition for 250 instead, rather than go through that, you know, that hassle and that nightmare of going through the entire build or refit or whatever
to break even or lose money.
It's just, yeah, because here's the thing, your contingency is always, you always build in your contingency at 10%, 15%, depending on the project. But if there's a chance that contingency could go over, which it does,
all it takes is something to be, you dig up something and find something.
Yeah, because ultimately we're not doing it for free. There's no question now.
Yeah.
We're here to make a profit.
No, of course.
But at the same time, you know, you've got to be sensible about things like that. And that's why, you know, when you look at a lot of people currently, they're doing conversions, commercial to resi conversions. There's a big market for that because of all these commercial units now becoming empty, and these landlords who are hiking up their rents, and then they can't rent the place out because no one can really afford it. They're just having to sell.
Yeah.
And by selling, it's, you know, that's like, right, okay, let's go in there and let's convert this to resi, housing shortage. Let's get some tenants in there, or let's develop it out and sell it on for people to buy homes rather than be sat there waiting around.
Yeah, because there's a lot, the high street's been sort of, especially with COVID and everything else, there's various, you know, we're seeing a lot of people now purchasing semi-commercial units, splitting the title, renovating, you know, the top half. I mean, I don't know if you've got the, you know, if you look at the betting shops, there's loads of betting shops in the auction houses at the moment, and where they don't pay business, they take the staircases out of all these buildings because they don't pay the business rates, so they don't have to pay business rates upstairs. So there's some really good opportunities there. But I mean, would you say, you know, to listeners and people that are sort of, you know, looking at getting into the derelict side of things, the more, I'd say dilapidated, the stuff that needs a bit more love, I like to say, you know, what sort of pitfalls and what sort of stuff should they be looking for when first sort of reviewing a property and everything else?
So one thing that we generally always get caught out on is the structure of the building.
Okay.
I've seen it happen so many times. When looking at a property, the first thing I'll do is, regardless of whether I'm going to get bridging or whether I'm going to get a mortgage or whatever it may be, I'll always get a structural surveyor and then your normal surveyor to go out. What's this property worth today? Here's my schedule of works, Mr. Surveyor. This is what I intend to do to the property. What's it going to be worth once I've done that? There's going to be a value today. There's going to be a 180-day value. There's going to be a GDV value. And then the structural surveyor will go out and make sure that the property is of sound structure. And if that all works out well, then yes, we carry on. But I see so many people go into it where they don't even think, and they'll just buy something, or they'll just do something, and they're just like, oh, well, actually, do you know that there's this massive crack that goes along behind that wall just there? And that's going to cost you 60 grand to remediate. Another one that I see constantly is the title, where there's no title. The title's not held with the land registry. It's whole property, there's an absent freeholder. Yeah. And it's like, well, do you know what we're going to go through? Like, even the bridge itself is going to take 12 months because you need to get all of that sorted. Yeah. And obviously we've seen how slow the conveyancing process has been since COVID.
Yeah. And do you know what? And it's still funny. There's so many law firms I'm speaking to at the moment that just said everything's just taking longer than ever. And it's always makes sure there's quite a lot of clients at the moment. They're in a rush, but then when it comes to doing the important bits,
they've got to be a bit more careful. They've got to think about it more,
especially in today's market as well. You know, because buying right and buying well is sort of the key bits. Because if you don't do that in the moment, you're completely done for. Because like you say, contingency plans have gone from that to that now. You know, the cost of goods. You know, even some of my family do quite large developments, and prices are only getting held for 24 hours in some places because of the constant changing. And and everything else. So yeah, it's good advice. Basically, make sure you get, we always recommend this on the show. Always seek professional advice.
I spent £9,000 on a property last year that I didn't end up buying because I found so many defects with that property, and I was just like, it's just not worth it.
You probably would have saved yourself another 50 to 100,000.
Absolutely. Yeah. You've got to think of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
The problem is that you can't have that small mentality mindset where you're thinking about tomorrow or the day after. You've got to think about 6 months down the line, what's going to happen, how's it going to work for you? Because they're always thinking about, oh my God, it's going to cost me £800 to do this survey with VAS or whatever it may be. But it's like, well, that's £800 that's going to save you 40, 50 grand down the line. Get it done, make sure you do it. And when I got into property, it was a case of, I never talked about it ever. Never spoke to anyone, never told a soul. And it wasn't until recently, again, probably since COVID, that I've publicized it a little bit more, because it gives you that credibility. One, especially as a mortgage advisor, it gives you credibility. Well, do you know what? You're asking me for advice on a mortgage and how to structure your deal financially. I've already done it. I've done it about 30, 40 times myself.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing 600 applications a year. So I've done it another 600 times with my clients. So if a new client comes in and they'll ask a question and I'll tell them how it is, they're more likely to trust.
100%.
Because you see a lot of rogue advisors who haven't got a clue about property investment, but they're trying to give advice. They're like, oh, well, if you go to this bridging lender and you use this type of finance and then you do this, and it's like, you've never done that, nor have you advised on that. You shouldn't be advising someone. You should just pass that case on. But then it's that old saying, oh, you trust your mate down the pub more than you trust the advisor, right? It's always that way. It's like,
that's one thing that's always baffled me. Dave, that's never bought a property in his life.
He knows everything about property. This property crash, mate, is coming. It's coming. It's just like, property crash. You know that we've never had a property crash?
No.
Ever. There's been a decline. There's been corrections.
But that's after huge growth.
Absolutely. But there's never been a crash. A crash, they're basically saying, 10% drop in one day. It doesn't happen. Look at 2008. 22 months, 16 months, 22% decline. Right? That's a decline.
Yeah.
It's not a crash. It took 16 months. And, I see people on podcasts and their Facebook Lives and all the rest. The crash is coming. It's like people waiting for a crash for 10, 15 years.
You can invest in any property and lose money. It doesn't
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to do with the property market itself, because there's all, if you look at the market as a whole, we're bouncing back from all the stuff that's been going on since the mini budget. And, we're doing very well compared to, if you look at some of the other countries at the moment. If you look at Germany and various other places at the moment, they're sort of, they're not doing so well. And like you said, it's not gone. But then,
no, and you know what? There is potentially a correction on its way in the next 12 to 18 months. There's probably going to be a correction, mainly due to the interest rates being so high, where people can't really afford to get a mortgage, and therefore the demand for that new property is declining slightly. So we may see a drop off. But if you look back to when we came out of COVID, we've had more than a 20% increase since then. So even if we have a 10% decrease, we're still above. We have had a slight decline, but ultimately, people ask the great question, now's not the time to buy, I'm going to buy when it crashes. And it's like, okay, that's great. But so while you wait, I'll go and buy the 20 properties that I've bought over the last year and carry on.
But you yourself as an investor and as a mortgage advisor, you can see people adapt, professional investors adapt. They go look at different routes. They'll go look at HMOs. They'll go look at holiday lets maybe, or derelict properties, or whatever it is. So again, there's always a good time to buy. It just depends what you're buying and how you're buying it, right?
Correct.
Obviously budgeting, I thought we'd quickly touch on budgeting, because that's obviously a big key sort of thing. So when you're sort of pricing it together, obviously we know you go and work your way back. Is there a certain sort of number that you generally like to spend on sort of like the refit side of things? Obviously, every building's different. Some's going to need new windows, some's going to need X, Y, and Z. But is there sort of a general formula that you generally tend to use?
There is, depending on the deal that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I'm doing a flip, I would look at things differently. If I'm doing a refurbish and refinance, then I'll look at it differently. As I mentioned, I haven't done a flip since 2018, but at that point, it was a case of get it to as nice a standard as I possibly can.
And then get it out the door.
And get it out as quickly as possible. And sometimes it would be a case of not even hesitating. Oh, I might wait for this or wait. No, just get it done, move it out. And if I made a £5,000 profit, so be it, and get out the door.
Yeah.
Why am I doing it? Building capital so I can hold more.
Yeah.
Currently, at the moment, with a lot of the investments that I'm doing, I'm never really going above 15 or 16,000.
Okay.
Because the property price point that I'm kind of stuck
You've got your sweet spot.
Absolutely, yeah. So right now I'm stuck at the 120 GDV. So I'm not fussed at what I'm buying it for, because generally a lot of them are being bought for between 50 and 80. Never really going above that. And I won't spend more than 15. But where I'm buying the refurb of 15, 16,000 is a full refurb.
Yeah.
It's a new bathroom, it's a new kitchen, it's new carpets, it's new plastering, it's new painting. I mean, it's literally the entire works.
Spot on.
I mean, it's not all the way back to brick, but it might as well.
Yeah.
But for 16,000, you're laughing, plus your project management fee on top of 10%. So that you just can't go wrong.
Yeah.
And those properties are beautiful. And then you've got 80 people trying to get that property. That's how many people are trying to rent. Like I had one go on the market. Well, I've got one going on the market next week. And the letting agents put out inquiries to some of the people, and 40 people have come back to them. They've not even seen the property. They haven't seen the picture. It's not gone live yet.
They just know it's in the area.
Yeah, they're doing the pictures.
It.
They're doing the pictures tomorrow, and now that was a 14,000 refurb, and that's because the tenant decided to leave. And I was like, right, let me get it refurbished for the next person.
It's actually quite scary, isn't it, when you sit and think, you know, the single amount of people that are going in on one property. I was speaking to a estate agent the other day that they had to stop taking inquiries for a property because
they've got to take it off the market straight away.
Yeah, and it's just like,
because there's so many people, especially renting.
Yeah,
there's just so many people looking for property. And the funny thing is, people say, oh, well, you know, you're going to get crap tenants, but the tenants that I've got coming in, vets, doctors, nurses, opticians, these are people staying in the houses.
There's a lot of people.
Just don't want. Some people don't want to buy.
No, I know quite a few people like that.
And the world needs to accept that.
But that probably moves me on to quite nicely the advice. What sort of advice would you give people at the moment in this market that are looking? You know, is the EPC stuff? Is that something you're really focused on at the minute?
So do you know what? It was a little bit. Not so much anymore. To be honest, I knew they wouldn't. So when they said 2025 and all the rest of it, I said, right, that's going to get pushed back. We know that's going to happen. Some houses there, it's impossible to get a C. It's impossible to get an EPC of C. You've either got to knock the whole thing down
and build it again,
Yeah, which is not going to work. Like, let's say you've got a block of 40 flats. You can't just knock it down just for the EPC purposes. It's ridiculous. But that's the society we live in, where, you know, you've got certain government officials who just don't get it.
Yeah.
And they're thinking from a political point of view rather than a common sense point
Practical point of view.
Absolutely. So I do a lot of Zoom calls with property investors on a weekly basis where I'll educate them on finance and stuff like that. And we'll talk about different things such as the EPC, because obviously some lenders will do 0.1% less. But I would say if you're buying something and you're refurbishing it, then get it to a C.
Yeah.
But if you're not readily doing a refurb, if it's at a D, so be it. Because, you know, further down the line, there may be an opportunity to refurbish that property, or a tenant may leave and you want to spruce it up a little bit. Then get it to a C. But I don't think a lot of the savvy investors are paying as much attention to it now as I think the government wanted. One of the biggest issues are, one, they're politicians, not businessmen.
Yeah.
Two, they're politicians, not property investors. When they're trying to implement change with something that they don't actually know themselves, it's like asking, you know, a kung fu fighter to teach me to sprint. It's never going to happen.
You wouldn't hire them, would you?
They're never going to tell me how to sprint. So you've got to use common sense about it. And it's not going to happen, because ultimately, they're politicians.
Yeah. And I suppose, unfortunately, that's the world we're in at the moment. But, you know, I've got high hopes for the UK property market, always do. We're very resilient.
We are, and, you know, we go through these 18-year cycles.
Yeah, I was going to say the 18-year cycle.
And we've been through them for years and years and years. If you look back to the beginning of when they started taking records, where is the trajectory? It's always going up.
Yeah.
it's always going to go up. And if it corrects, it'll go back up again. If it slumps a little bit, it'll go back up again. That's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
You know, it's not 1983 where you could buy a 5-bedroom house for £40,000. Right? It's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
That house is never going to go back to £40,000. Never, right? Because it was 1983.
Yeah.
Today, that house is worth $1 million.
You knock 10% off and you're still nowhere near where it would be.
Exactly. And again,
goes back to the doom mongering, doesn't it? And the
yeah,
naysayers.
the scaremongering of the media, you know, it's like, let's just strike fear into every single human being that exists because it's what we're good at.
Well, I'd just like to say massive thank you for coming on today. Also, would you be able to let our listeners know where they can find you, where they can follow your property journey? Because I know you share projects and stuff that you're doing. So where's best for people to find you?
To be honest, if it's mortgage advice, email is the easiest way. On our website, hearthstonemortgages.co.uk, there's an inquiries that come straight through to us. There's 8 in my team, including myself.
Amazing.
So I've trained everyone, and my business partner Jordan, well, she's actually not a business partner in the mortgage business. She's in one of the other businesses, but she started as my intern 3 years ago. She's now training all the advisors because I trained her. So you know, there's always going to be people that kind of, it's almost like they've got my brain, because it's exactly what I've been doing for years. And
so they get 8 of you basically.
Well, yeah, pretty much, yeah. And then so Instagram, I post a lot of the property stuff on Instagram, refurbs that I'm doing, before and after pictures, just to show you, you know, what kind of standard we're doing them to.
Amazing.
Because I think one of the biggest things is the standard of property.
Yeah.
People just think, oh, just chuck 3-4 grand at it, it'll be fine. They look at the property and it's like, wow, it's actually not that nice. You're not actually going to get the right kind of tenant.
And this is the thing, isn't it? Like you're saying, with you're buying to hold, you're going to do it to a slightly higher standard. Absolutely. Because you know you're going to have people renting there. If you're looking to flip it, you're going to just get it to a standard where it looks pretty in pictures and then get it out the door.
Yeah. So yeah, Instagram, I do a lot of that. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn.
Oh, you love it then.
All over the place.
Brilliant. Well, lots of places to find you.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, look, just want to say a big thank you for coming in again today, and then look forward to watching the rest of your property journey.
Cheers, appreciate it.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks.
I'd just like to say thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk Property with MFS today. Please don't forget to comment and subscribe, and don't miss out on any of our future episodes. If you want to learn more about Market Financial Solutions and what we do, please do visit www.mfsuk.com.